It can. For you, Mr. Nonsky. Anything.
I appreciate it.
Church, so excited to get on your end of year sales tax charts. So whenever you think like.
This time we'll kill the meeting to order.
Yeah.
Anyone here off on vacation?
Almighty Lord of all, thank you for this community, for this city. Thank you for the government that you have provided and for the officials that are before us. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your long support and upholding this place. Thank you for all of the churches, for all of the businesses, for all of the families, and for all of the individuals that make up this community. And Lord, we ask your blessing upon Concordia. Please bless this place and everyone in it. May the gospel of Christ go all through this place, that people would turn to you and know the power of your salvation, that we would have peace, that righteousness would be done. We ask for your wisdom and guidance in this meeting tonight. Lord, we pray that much good would be done tonight, and many beneficial things would happen. Guide each as they make decisions, as there is discussion. And Lord, I pray that you would glorify yourself in all things. Thank you. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your Son. And we pray in his name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any changes to the agenda this evening?
I would ask that we add a short executive session for non-elected personnel, 10 minutes, please.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Jackson to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to public comments, this will be a time when citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. Public speakers. Moving on to our agenda, the minutes of February 7th, 2024 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the February 7th, 2024 meeting. Second.
It's moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Jackson to approve the minutes of February 7th, 2024. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to appropriation ordinance number 3. Questions?
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 3.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve appropriation ordinance number 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to City Hall roof bids.
Mayor and Commissioners, we did solicit bids for the replacement of the shingled areas of the roof on the outside of City Hall, including the area of the fire department. Received one bid back from Geisler Roofing. You can see the base bid amount. There were 2 alternates requested as well, and that was to replace the soffit and the fascia underneath. One was to remove and replace the soffit and fascia. The other was to cover it. The prices of those are very close. Because we only had $25,000 budgeted in CIP for this exterior improvements, I did visit with Dallas, have some think a little bit about if there were other materials rather than the shingles that we specified that would be better suited for us to go back out and rebid, see if we could get a better price. Everything came in within a couple $1,000s, so it really wasn't worth the effort to go back out and rebid. The shingle that we specified was a Decker shingle or an equivalent brand. And it's the same one that we used on the Brown Grand Theater on the shingled areas. We'll select a color that'll match with our exterior. The reason we did that was because it was like the most close to the existing mansard roof and wouldn't really, we would avoid a major aesthetic conflict, I guess. We know the shingles look decent with the brick that's out there, so we want to go back to something similar. We do need to go ahead and replace the shingled areas of the roof regardless of whether you want to do the soffit or not at this point in time, because the shingles and nails are falling onto the public sidewalk, and that is a safety hazard for our public or passersby and our employees that are out and about. So we want to make sure that we get that part done. If you decide today that you want to go ahead and address the soffit at the same time, we can do that, but to stay within the budget that's there, the base bid is what's being recommended tonight. So I would ask for your approval of the base bid to Geisler Roofing to replace the shingled areas of the mansard roof in the amount of $24,685.33. I'm also asking for a 10% contingency, just in case something comes up, and that way we don't have to wait 2 weeks and come back and get approval for that. We can keep the project moving forward.
With the contingency, is that something that would come back if it is unused, or is it just
Yes, like we hold on to it, and if for some reason there's something like, let's say that they peel off the shingles and a piece of the decking underneath is completely rotten and they have to replace that, then we would use that contingency to replace that. Rather, if we don't, then procedurally we would have to come back to you and ask for additional funds to authorize for the contract. If it's not used, the contractor does not proceed it.
So would it be better to do the alternate at the same time? Do the soffits?
We can, so there's two schools of thought. One is that we only budgeted $25,000, so we need to not exceed that. The other school of thought is that we know construction costs continue to climb with every year, and so if we budget for the soffit next year, more than likely the costs are going to increase probably 5 to 10% by next year. So it's entirely up to you what you'd like to do.
I'm not, I guess, remarkably familiar with the process of replacing all that, but is there gonna be additional cost to replace or repair the soffit at a different date with not mobilization cost per se, but just any additional expenditure that might find greater efficiency by doing it all at once? I mean, what's the cost of doing it later, not just with materials increase, but is there additional costs that would be incurred?
The mobilization and then the care and unfastening and refastening the pieces that you're connecting to. And I don't know all the terms. Bruno can probably help us out with that a little bit, but.
Yeah, I could probably help a little bit. It depends on the fascia, soft material typically goes on and then a fascia goes over that to kind of help hide it, but also if you put a fascia on, which we're gonna do because that dresses up that front. There's a J metal that can go around that soffit, can go into it and cover the old soffit. And that could be down, it depends, usually down an inch or two, depending, or that soffit could be easily removed. The old soffit removed, new soffit put on, and then the new fascia can be put back on. Kind of depends, and then against the brick, we have to do a J metal, whether we remove or replace. The problem with removing and replacing out here on the front is the soffit that was originally put on, I think when it was built as a Bogart store, it's a thick, rugged metal. And to remove that, there's vents in it. And I think there's access for some junction boxes up in there too. I think most people would just go right over it. You're just losing an inch of height and you're not losing any beauty or anything. You don't have to remove anything. You have to remove the vents from your place. But other than that, I think doing the soft at a later date is not going to be, well, the way materials go up in prices, you never know, but the work isn't going to be exceptionally more to come back later and do this all.
So just remobilization back on would probably be your biggest expense would be a little time. Right now, they could rip everything off and go.
And just because I'm not not good at this topic. So what is our risk of waiting on this soffit?
The risk of waiting is that you spend a little bit more on mobilization to bring them back. You probably spend another 5 to 10% in general for materials costs going up. But the benefit to that is that we could budget for that within our CIP and remain within our budget. If you choose to replace it right now, we go over budget and we either have to delay another small project that's on CIP, which we've delayed a couple already, or we dip into reserves, which we've also done already.
Is there any risk, I guess, risk to the building?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
it's not aesthetically pleasing?
Right, we've got a couple different soffit materials, if I understand correctly, and so one of the things that this project would do would clean that up and make it all nice and neat. I think a portion of it's still wood and a portion of it's metal, is that correct?
Yeah, it's amazing. I've been walking in this building a long time, and I didn't realize that fire department's office, it's okay because it was done when the fire department was done with the metal. That's the same as the siding metal. So that's okay. All we need to do is an answer to the carpet. The soffit out here, I believe, was either replaced or done when they did that little entry, when they converted it to City Hall. I'm not sure. It might have been part of the Bogart, but that little part there has a wooden, like a T111 panel soffit. It's just wood. And there is actually some nails kind of popped in there, but we can fasten that back up easy enough. And it's been repainted since when we painted the outside a few years back. I can't remember.
Just before I got here.
And then this soffit out here is just that thick, durable, harder than metal. So there's basically just two different kinds of soffit we'd be dealing with, the hard metal out here and a little bit about 16 foot of wood soffit out here. That wood soffit, if I'd done, I'd just go right over it. But if we're gonna come back and do it, it might be easier to take it off, put the new metal on, depending on circumstances at the time, materials costs and labor costs.
The addendums are almost as much as the roof anyway, so I would, I guess, move to approve the base bid of Geisler Roofing for the City Hall roof in the amount of $24,685.33 plus a 10% contingency to be paid from CIP.
Moved by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Hutchinson to approve the base bid from Geisler Roofing to replace the mansion roof at City Hall in the amount of $24,685.33. That's a 10% contingency to be paid from CIP. Is there any further discussion?
I would say that, I mean, just because that is a project that does need done, that we put that on our list for the next budgeting, but. Okay.
Any further discussion? I guess a question that I would have would be, do we anticipate any challenges from Geisler Roofing being able to schedule that project for the Mansard? Is that something that we anticipate struggling with in that?
We don't, he did not indicate that it was going to be an issue getting materials in or working it into the schedule.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to resolution 2024-2173 utility account policy.
This policy is very similar to the one you passed in 2020, which let us let a family member know after a person was deceased that they did need to eventually put it in the name of whoever was living there. And we've had pretty good luck with that, but lately, the biggest issue has just been people who move out, don't tell us, and someone else moves in and the water's on, they don't change it, and then they rack up a giant bill for the people who didn't turn it off. Sometimes that's a landlord, and they're trying to be good to their renters, and they leave it on and then come back in a couple of months and they don't want to pay it. And if we don't have it in someone else's name, we can't try to collect from anyone else. So it just seemed to be, Megan told me that there was, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, there was a case, 3 cases that week where she was telling people to go ahead and switch it. And for one reason or another, they don't, some people don't want to pay a deposit. So anyway, this would just give us something to say, look, you need to do it as soon as possible, and would give us something to stand on if we did need to just turn it off until they did it. I think we'll have a lot less in collections by doing it this way. We won't have such big bills.
what's her deposit?
We do have $100 deposit for renters. And occasionally a landlord will just say, well, they can't pay that deposit, I'll leave it in my name. We do get that. And we try to explain, if that's the way it is, then you are responsible for the bill. And then they don't realize how much it's gonna be. So we've had people say, can you please just split the bill and send it to the new tenants? No, we can't do that either. So there's a little bit of anger sometimes when people realize that the bill is still in their name, so. This just lets us notify them. We have phone numbers for most people, so we could call and let them know.
So the deposit's only for renters though,
Mhm.
not for this new service for residents?
No, we decided that years ago when we went to a deposit, maybe about 10 years ago. And we kind of looked at who left us with a bill usually when they moved out, and it was usually renters, so that's why we did the deposit. The $100 doesn't cover 2 months anymore. At that time it did. So usually if someone moves out, we still don't get all of our money back, but it helps.
How do you all become aware of the 7 days of vacating the property or death? Like, you just watch the paper
Sometimes the gals up front know,
or? Okay.
and no, sometimes we don't. Sometimes you find out later that someone has died quite a while ago.
Okay.
So. And it's not gonna be 100% foolproof, but it'll help.
I noticed in this, it says no person may be the utility account holder for more than one property at a time. What's the reason for that?
No.
And the tenants moving from one house to another and not shutting off the water in their one name and trying to turn it on to another, or perhaps they've gone into collections for having their name on a utility bill at one house and then they move into another house and try to open up an account there, then they can't, their name is still on that other account.
It will happen sometimes when you move out, you still want the water on, but you want it in the new place, but eventually you're gonna be shutting it off in a week or two, so. Basically, by saying no person can be a utility holder of more than one account means that you're only living in one place.
So that they owe another deposit if they paid their bill, if they moved to a different location.
I think the deposit moves with them. We'll give a deposit back after a year. If we still have one on file, I believe that moves to the new.
Which would help people.
Mhm.
This language, unless I'm missing something though, doesn't specify, like if I owned 2 properties, I could have service at both properties. I mean, it doesn't say just tenants. You see,
Yeah,
So
that was
if
my
I-
question too.
and if I was a
landlords.
landlord and I had maybe water on at 5 residences, then I'm
Mhm.
technically not within the guidelines of this.
Well, Amy and I talked about it, and I mean, definitely we can take it out if you want. We can make exceptions. It was kind of just something to stick with if someone was trying. For example, we have people who are in collections and they know if they come in, they have to pay the bill that they owe. So they get someone else to come in and put it in their name, like a family member. And so we've caught on to that and we've kind of told them they can't, although we really didn't have a lot to back that up. But that happens quite often.
Is it only for renters though? Because then, I mean, in that circumstance, like just that tenant language could be added possibly.
That's where a lot of our challenges come from, is usually the renters.
Non-owner occupied, right, which I wonder about the benefit of folding this into some of the work that we've talked about doing in general about how to improve the overall conditions of different non-owner occupied properties. I do think as a property owner, I mean, I know growing up, we had several utility bills as property owners, and my dad always wanted that to be the case so that if somebody didn't carry on, that the power wouldn't go out, the water wouldn't go out, and then the cost of having to start that all up again. So I mean, I think that it can make sense for a reasonable property owner to maintain that. And I'd want to allow that to happen. I also want to have safeguards in place to where I can't just hop from place to place and keep racking up different bills and different names. So how do we achieve that?
We could leave the language in, we could strike the language, we could amend it to be targeted toward non-owner occupied or tenants. What would you like to do?
That is a good question.
Or if there's a better verbiage that achieves the goal than what we're trying to achieve, and then we're open to that as well.
Is there benefit in tabling this and then thinking through that and coming back to it at the next meeting? Or are we looking for a quick solution?
No, I mean, we haven't had this for years, so. Just as long as we're clear about what we need to come back with, that would be perfectly fine to do this next meeting.
I feel like all of it is fine. I just want to maybe change the language of that particular one, but if that changing the language would take more time than tabling is fine. I would just say, I mean, if you own multiple properties, you should be able to have service on multiple properties.
I mean, so could we add a descriptor to that single statement then that would, allow there to be discretion of administrative staff to allow that to happen?
Good idea.
Yeah,
And that's
because
not,
if an owner is, they're trying to get away from that. People moving out and then the owner ends up, because they've been nice and kept their name, so. I mean, I know what you're saying, you know, you might wanna keep the water on for, while you paint the inside, or, you know, something, so.
I mean, if a property owner has the bill in their name and others have accumulated a significant bill, then that's still the property owner's responsibility to pay it. I think allowing there to be some, I just want to make sure that we're not compromising our organization by allowing that, like, creating a liability for the organization by allowing there to be some discretion. Because if I am that property owner, then I can have that conversation with whoever and say, hey, I'd like to be able to do this, and I know that Bruno's pretty good about this stuff, so I can put an asterisk next to that and we can let that happen. Or Chuck shows up like, no, sorry, Chuck, that's not gonna happen. You know the rules. Right. Still that, and that's non-discriminatory. It's simply because of history. Does that give us the
I think we have.
traction that we need?
I think we have sufficient information to use that discretion judiciously and make it so that it makes sense for the situation.
So then we could just put a comma where that period is.
Then subject to the discretion of city administration.
Mhm.
That work.
The ban against multiple accounts only applies to tenants, doesn't it?
But it does.
It doesn't say that.
It's not clear that way.
But isn't this only
It's just
directed at
utility.
this one purpose? That's what I'm confused of. Isn't this only for, we're talking about the purpose of this resolution is to develop and maintain blah, 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 when it must be transferred from a previous resident's name to the current resident. That's all this is about, right?
But it's,
But the
Which, so I
resolution-
mean, saying comma and what you just said would be fine for the discretion, but this doesn't have anything to do with tenants or anything.
I don't think that we want to limit it to tenants. I think that could cause us problems later on in this particular case if we do that.
If this is for anybody,
This is the general rule. If you have a unique circumstance, come visit with us and we'll evaluate it.
as a rule of thumb, no, but.
Correct.
Give some discretion.
I would move to approve resolution 2024-2173 as amended.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, seconded by Commissioner Jackson to approve resolution 2024-2173 as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to managers' reports.
Mayor Commissioner, we had quite a bit going on the last couple of weeks, especially this last week, a lot related to housing. And then Tuesday, Nikki and I presented to the Chamber Coffee Group about the MIH project. It was really well received, a lot of good questions. And so it was a lot of fun presenting to them. Special thanks to Art Slaughter for holding up the plat map for us so that we could, everybody could see it while we were talking. I think we made his arms tired, but he did a great job.
Good.
We also had the pre-construction meeting on the 15th for the moderate income housing project for up at St. Joe subdivision. Both Spargo plans to start next week clearing trees. They did go around the neighborhood and hang some door hangers around so people kind of knew what to expect, that there would be heavy equipment in the area. They'll spend about a week pulling out trees and then they'll begin some of the grading work. Work on demolition of 830 West 11th is progressing, but it's progressing very, very slowly. We are playing phone tag right now with the demolition contractor to find out what the status update is for this week on the job, but they do have the trees cleared out. They did remove the house behind the structure. They did remove the garage on the west end, so they are making progress. They also have to scrape the asbestos floor tile off of the, concrete in order to dispose the concrete properly in the CD pit, so that does take a little bit of time inside the building, but they are making slow progress there. Let's see, what else did we have? We did close on our first infill property last Friday for the moderate income housing project, so that's exciting. Again, our goal is to target 4 of those infill properties and establish neighborhoods on vacant lots and build some homes that will be qualified as part of that MH program. We also had some gains on the legislative side of things related to Senate Bill 384 with the ambulance attendant issue. It did pass through the Senate. It goes on to the House. Don't yet have a hearing date, so hopefully that will happen soon. And what that ended up being was some language that allowed the current waiver from the Board of EMS to not have an expiration date or not have a time limit. It was limited to 12 months or 24 months of public hearing. This would allow us to apply for a waiver if we need it and not be worried about that end date and having it expire and having to re-up it again. So we did apply for a waiver. We haven't heard yet. I think April will hear from us. Okay. Then we also provided some written testimony on Monday related to Senate Bill 474 relating to restrictions on administrative ordinances. So if we think about some of the things that were covered with administrative ordinances here, establishment of certain city departments is done by administrative ordinance. Some of the things we do related to setting some fees for certain things or the passage of bonds for improvements at our wastewater treatment plant, for example. This bill, if passed, would have allowed citizen petition to come in and overturn those ordinances after the fact, which could have caused problems with just normal city operations. So that one felt like a very easy one to provide some testimony in opposition to. So that's been the action that we've taken this week on legislative front. Gonna let Bruno speak to the comp plan and lumber update. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for me.
I did talk to the contractor. I was drinking coffee anyway. Yeah, with him you might. But he said that they were getting ready to push all the drywall and wood has to be taken out before they can do the floor. And they have to rent a machine to do the floor. And hopefully they'll get all that done soon, this week. And then start knocking it down. Said it won't take long to knock the building in once they get all the innards out, so.
Staff reports?
Anyone, any update on just got us, on the letter of map revision, we just got our draft email that the engineers will be sending to FEMA asking for concurrence to go ahead with the application process and that we're trying to get, all our zone A down to zone X, except for a couple extreme areas of the, northeast corner of town. Then if we just received that, did you?
Yeah, like
Yeah, I opened it up like that real
3:34
quick.
today.
If we're okay with that, they will send the email to FEMA and then get a response. So we're expecting that, the Lomar package will be submitted by 4/19. And they expect a 60-day review, and then from there, it's a matter, if everything goes okay, then we start with the public notifications for coming to official change. So they're still anticipating fall of this year, hopefully, to have the meeting and then get any questions answered, and then after that, would be the official adoption, depending on public comments. The comprehensive plan steering committee, I just sent out an email about a half hour ago for a meeting on the 27th. We we have the goals and strategies report, the engagement report, and then they will be bringing, Aaron will be bringing an existing land use map for review. I've opened that up, looked at it. There's a couple of things that we gotta look at and maybe change and that'll kind of lead us into what our future land use map may be looking like. And as we all know, it's changed in areas. And then we're still looking at a June, July adoption date for that, depending on how everything goes. You guys will probably be getting a lot of information here in the next couple of months, because there's several chapters in that thing. And Aaron confirmed it on our meeting that they thought they were on schedule with, I thought that was a little ambitious, but I'll try to keep up. But anyway, any questions about it? You guys get all the information anyway. So look it over, and if you got any questions, let me know.
I figured I'd update you guys real quick. I meant to do it last meeting, but I think that was the one where I was ill. The eminent domain proceeding has been filed. I had to file a motion with the court to publicize because we're not able to find the owners anywhere. And we have 2 possible locations where they're at, so that motion was granted. So I have been trying to find places that are affordable to publicize. I think I have found them now. I did learn that Burleson, Texas doesn't necessarily mean it's Burleson County, and was talking to a very nice lady in Burleson County about publicizing in the newspaper. And then right about the time we were done with everything and I was about ready to get a hold of Amy to get payment, she's like, oh, well, wait a second. Did you want Burleson County or the town of Burleson? I'm like, oh, there's different ones. She goes, Burleson, the city, is 3 hours away from here. So then went there, but was able to, I was like, and she was so affordable too. But it was also, once a week publication. So she's like, yeah, we'll make it work. But that does have to be publicized for 3 weeks. And then after that, we set a hearing date. Hearing date will be in April. The judge only has hearing dates for that type of proceeding once a month. Wanted to do it in March, but her March one is like March 5th. It's way too early. So we will have to shift it to the April 10th. It doesn't mess up the timeline too terribly much, because once we have that initial hearing, the publication and the initial hearing are really and truly the most important thing. That's then shortly after that, I will go ahead and then file the appointment of the appraisers. They'll go appraise it. That doesn't take very long. We have that public meeting right before a city council meeting. And then after that, once the appraisal is accepted and there's nobody contest it, which I don't suspect to be the case, then it's just a matter of filing all the needed paperwork and getting it transferred. So maybe just a little bit later than I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be done the beginning of April, but unfortunately with the way she set her docket, that wasn't going to be possible. So, because they actually it's kind of silly, publicized for 2 weeks, and then you have to wait another 2 weeks before you have the hearing. I don't know why that is in the statute, but it's kind of silly. So, but we are moving along. Everything's good. So I think we found places where we're not going to have to. I was a little worried with Kansas City and Dallas how much it would be to publicize, but I found some newspapers that are actually close to that location where we think they do it. So, any questions? All right, I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Let's go on and talk about the 3rd Street and Broadway sinkhole. Total dimensions for that was 24 foot long by 24 wide and 18 foot deep. And that was a total of 384 cubic yards. The bottom layer was estimated to be compacted fill sand at 6 foot. The total amount of tons that it was going to take was 178. It was estimated that with the sand price at $8.32 a ton, it would equal about $1,481.89. The next layer would be compacted fill dirt, and it was estimated to take 271 cubic yards. The truck holds 8 yards, so it's estimated to take about 35 loads. And AB3 rock will make up the last remaining 2 feet of that hole. That portion was estimated to take 53 tons at a cost of $50, equaling about $2,666.50. And then Lyndon Snavely with the contractor on the job, and he was a base pay a day for $2,000. The amount that we put in for sand on the project was 191 tons, with the total cost of $1,595.36. The soil was hauled from our dig location, so there was no cost for that material. It took 26 dumps full, which figured out to be 208 cubic yards, and the AB3 rock took 47 tons. At $50 was about $2,355, and then Lyndon Snavely, his total came up to about 4,000. So the project was projected to take eight weeks to complete. But with the help of Lyndon making himself available, the project only took 3 weeks. The project was also projected to cost 10 to 18,000, and it came under budget at a little around $8,000. So I just want to thank Lyndon for making the city a quick priority, and also the co-op for providing the usage of their lot for the displaced truckers. And thanks to the displaced truckers who were being so patient with us and getting their lot fixed, and also my guys for getting the loads hauled there, make it happen. So
Appreciate it. Yeah. Other staff reports? Marcia?
I had a question for Bruno. No, I just wondered who owns the building that's at it says Wiesner Construction on it, by this,
The old Fairmont building.
yeah.
What about it?
I just wondered, there's so much
Well, there's a lot of
junk around,
junk there, yeah.
and I wondered if that was something needed to,
Well, that's been asked about several times over the years.
yeah.
And in my best estimation, back when the sites like that were zoned industrial, there wasn't a screening requirement originally. And now there would be, so I don't know how to treat that. We should put that guy several times on other equipment like that in other locations. But in reality, he would have two options, either remove all the stuff or put it inside or put a fence up for screening, and he'd be done because it's industrial. But we can treat it as a nuisance, but I think, and I would have to speak to attorney about this, but I believe that was compliant at the time it was established. There ain't we can do about it, except for the weeds, weeds and grass, that's all. So. But that, and then what was the use before and how was that, because any type of use that would go in there would most likely have some sort of outdoor storage of materials. And if it was established, way back when Fairmont built, when the railroad came in, nobody cared about screening, all they wanted was activity. The town was growing, so they didn't care about that, just build. And then when it became a nuisance, now we got to screen. So we could look at that, but that's been that way forever, and it's really very few claims.
It's so close to the National Orphan Trail.
Right, and then the development next to there is, could use a little dressing up too, as far as,
Yeah.
But you're in an industrial area, in an old industrial area.
Right.
But I'll look into it, see if we can clean it up a little bit. It'll be good.
Kristen?
I've noticed that there's been quite a bit of activity
with filling in potholes, and I know that that's greatly appreciated, and I know it's a big job, but that's what happens when we have winter, so I appreciate that.
Yes, on that same note, I was curious, when they do the pothole filling, will they do the baseball fields area? Cause there is, like some parking spots in some areas that
The parking lot or the 7th Street or?
it's in the parking lot, like, so like if you're driving out of the field, there's an area that's really eroded, and then there's a parking spot up, it would be south of the softball fields, like
Yeah, they
where
even
those
get those
poles.
before they are finish up the roads first.
And then they'll catch those ones. Okay. And then I also, maybe this is a Bruno question, was there on 7th Street, there is a, I'm not sure what it is, I was curious, what is it? And by the middle school, I think it's maybe some apartments, and there's a dog fence out front, and there's some unusual structures in the back.
Is it the big long one?
The big long building,
Yeah, it used to be the
7th Street.
the old nursing.
Was-
Seventh and Matthew.
So,
It's owned by some individuals, and they're supposed to be fixing it up, I think, into a home of some
Is it
sort.
becoming a nuisance?
Like a single family residence,
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
that's what it is.
That's the uses.
That's what the use is for that.
It's owned okay for that.
Mhm.
The zoning is allows for multi-family dwelling, but it's being used right now, the same family. Mother lives in the middle, and the one son has one wing, and the other son has the other wing, that's the way I understand it.
Okay.
And it's, needs to have some maintenance. Yeah. The building, I know, the gutter was falling off, I informed that last year, and I don't know. I don't know. With the snow and ice, someone showed up to.
Yeah.
For that, so.
No, pass.
I think just as we're approaching, I guess, budgeting, and talking about putting projects in the budget for next year, I really, I guess feel strongly about working to see what we would do about prioritizing, continue to prioritize nuisance violations, addressing these issues, and maybe trying to find some sort of umbrella effort that we could do as a city. You know, I think about how much investment the city is making in the city, how much investment other members of our community, large and small, are making in our community. I really feel like that a lot of that work is diminished by the lack of work for some. And I know that for some, there are limitations that make it difficult to take care of things. But I really would like to do what we can as a city to figure out how to address these issues, how to help the whole of our town reflect the pride and the investment that several members of the community have made. Whether that's a full-time nuisance abatement. I mean, I know these are all FTEs, and I know that these are difficult positions, but is there a way we can work towards some sort of collaborative effort, collaborative plan that we can continue to try to avoid playing whack-a-mole and be consistent with addressing some of the issues that really, I think, compromise our community as a whole.
Do you propose that in like some study sessions before budget, so
Sure.
we're not scrambling, okay?
Yeah, I think it'd be ordinance wise, staffing wise, what are the different tools that we can have? Because I think that's a law enforcement issue. I mean, I think that there's a lot of different ways in which this touches almost every department that we have. So how could we best achieve without duplicating or replicating these different things, really go about it from a very holistic approach to take care of some of these issues.
I like the idea of that, along those same lines, like with the comprehensive plan, it would be really nice to have that completed before our budget session also, just so that we're aware of what it's gonna look like as we budget for the next year. But it may or may not happen. It sounds like June or July and we budget.
Yeah, well, it'll be close. I
Yeah.
think that with you serving on the steering committee, all of you serving, I think we'll have a really good idea of what we're headed towards. So I think That's reasonable.
And it would be hard for me to think that anything that we would come up with to address that would be conflicting in any way with any kind of proposal or recommendation or anything that came out of the comprehensive planning. I think that those would be fairly aligned measures.
I just thought of something else. I noticed that the state has, or the federal government, I don't remember which, has allowed money for the Kyle to repair. So can we get them to repair an intersection too?
We fought with them. I think that was one of the very first things he was giving to me when I started here, and they will just flat out, I'll put it on the record, they flat out ignore you. They don't, and it's their, by law, it's theirs to maintain, but
Right.
They're the ones also that put together the package to send to the governor. So unless it's one of their priorities.
Yeah.
Probably didn't make it, I would guess.
I was hopeful that at least one intersection, one railroad crossing would be decent. The Santa Fe has fixed some of theirs.
You know, we have a senator on the transportation committee, so that might be a nice topic to bring up too, to strengthen attached to some of these dollars that we fix, because I think it's a statewide issue.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
us.
All right, information agenda. The fourth quarter financial report.
Do you want me to talk about it?
Uh,
Under do not talk about, not ask about information.
Fair enough. Anybody have any
We are doing
questions
great.
for?
Our reserve is only 30. Let's see, we increased 31,000 from last year. If you do a comparative, you know, take away grant funds and all that, then that is where we were at, compared to last year, so. Very highest reserve that we've had. Maybe ever that I know.
What is our
Uh,
normal
the-
carryover actually? Do you know what the normal is? I mean, you have the 31 additional, but is that pretty on pace or is that quite a bit more than a normal year?
That would be probably normal from year to year, but, the 1.8 million that we have as a reserve is higher than that. We need to have 1 million. So
Go ahead.
that's all, and then everything else, I mean, I put in there about, and we've kind of talked about before, the water fund and possibly talking about rates in the future, but everything else is on target as planned, so.
Why are the CDs, it looks like for like the cemetery endowment and something else, why are they in such low percentage CDs?
We just keep them there, and I don't know, that's been the way, let's see, the ones that are below the line are for those certain items, and so we've always just kept them there. The cemetery endowment one has to stay at that amount, I believe, and we get a annual, that's the small animal trust, we get an annual amount from that trust every year, and that CD just stays there. But I don't know. Those two are ones that we don't bid out. The ones above the line I bid out every, and they come due to all the banks.
Why don't we bid those ones out this year?
I'm not 100% sure if they're supposed to stay where they are, or if there's more to it than that, because they are in a trust and an endowment at those places, so I'm not really.
Okay, so maybe because of the trust and endowment piece.
We just keep them rolling at where they're at, and there's such a small amount that it's not.
And we're on page 39. And maybe Jeremy can answer this too, on why did we budget so much for commodities expenses for this year, under expenditures and transfers? I don't understand what that's for.
Oh, that is the,
Stuff
that's basically to spend the fund to zero. It's his reserve line.
That's his reserve line is,
Yeah, and that's pretty much where it is on ours too, but, and so that's, within that is the 959,582 on page 40 that I take back out.
Oh,
That 959,582 is the reserve, but I guess you could call it the reserve, but we spend his fund down to zero in case there's ever on the budget.
Yeah.
In case there's ever a need to spend a large amount that we don't have to get at budget, but that's what we intend to keep. Every year is whatever that chunk is.
Gotcha. Furthermore on that, I guess this is more for Jeremy then, or both of you, are there any remaining fees anymore? I don't get my bill. It goes to my husband's email in a black hole. Like, do we have a fee on the water bill anymore?
The treatment plant is,
That's the only one. No, that pool went off a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so just that. And then, why do you think sewer is down? Why do you, I mean, water's up, sewer's down. What would cause that?
Irrigation. Doesn't pay sewer.
sewer is recalculated yearly based on 3 months, and so maybe in those 3 months it was less water usage. What are the 3 months? January,
February, March,
so I mean, it could have just been at that time. that-
slow 2 months for some reason.
Well, connection fees are also down. Is that just because we're not moving houses? Okay, so housing shortage.
Excellent question.
And then, sorry, next, last question, why do we think it's a little disappointing to see fuel sales are down at the airport? Especially since, you know, that was a big portion of one of the things we thought would happen if we built a runway. So why are they down?
Don't have a good answer to ask. I'll go visit with Brian.
I think that would be beneficial to hear. Are we, you know, being welcoming enough to other businesses that are wanting to, you know, have business there, who will buy fuel, not, you know, buy it somewhere else? Are we, you know, what are our flight patterns looking like? Do we have more flights coming in, or are they just buying somewhere else? Just a little disappointing.
I know on the fuel pricing,
Yeah,
Jet A especially, we don't sell much of it anyway, but, when Fuller was still here,
Mhm.
there was a problem in the computer system, so it didn't talk to the airport and actually change our pricing. So online, it was still viewed as higher than what we were actually charging.
oh, so they went and bought it somewhere else.
It was, maybe, just,
Yeah.
it's Jet A,
That'd be
they
the
sell a
best.
lot of it anyway, but there was a communication there with the systems.
Okay,
That we didn't figure out till I went out there and talked to Brian about the pricing, what we're gonna have to do.
yeah,
For several years, we have to, Brian pump some of it out and then just to keep it fresh.
yeah.
So we have to do that, but as for the sales, it was a little bit higher than the surrounding areas, but we've dropped that down to try to move some more, but
Could Brian put a memo together, like, just with that? I don't think we've ever gotten a memo from him, you know, and he's our manager out there, just so once a year. Some what stats look like, that would be helpful. That's all I.
Well, that makes sense then, because if pilots are looking around online for fuel prices, then I'm gonna stop here versus here.
that's a little bit of an educated guess on that. I don't know.
Yeah, and how long did that period last?
Yeah, how long that's, or how that's communicated online, our pricing, or if it's all for him. We did figure that out here in the last month and a half.
I truly appreciate people that are able to digest and process that sort of information. I am the black hole that you talked about.
And one other thing on the yearly or the monthly receipts that I track on it, November, December, and January are always lower months anyway.
Sure,
So your fourth quarter is always gonna be lower.
it's cold up there and a little plain.
West Daylight, yeah.
At this point, I would entertain a motion for executive session. So let's read that.
I move that the city commission recess into executive session to discuss employment personnel issues pursuant to the non-elected personnel matter exception KSA 75-4319B1 with Amy Lang and Justin Farrell in attendance, and to reconvene in the city commission chamber at 6:34 PM.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Hutchinson to adjourn to executive session for the aforementioned reasons. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
That memory. That's what you did.
Turkey, India.
Yeah.
It's got some good stories.
I'd like to return to executive session.
No action was taken.
No action was taken. I'd like to return to executive session for an additional 10 minutes. So that'll be 6:44
For the same reasons.
for the same
Is there a
reasons.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jackson, second by
Motion.
Commissioner Hash to return into executive session. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. No action was taken. At this time, I would entertain a motion to recess into executive session to discuss confidential business data or trade secrets of a business, KSA 754319B4 with Amy Lang, Justin Farrell in attendance, and reconvene in the city commission chamber at 7 PM. So your motion? So moved. Moved by Commissioner Wayne, second by Commissioner Jackson to recess into executive session for 15 minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion here.
An interesting story, the history of that. Oh.
No action was taken. This time I would entertain a motion. to
I
adjourn.
heard that we adjourned. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wynn, second by Commissioner Cash to adjourn. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned.